Welcome back to the Master and Apprentice podcast. Or this is not a podcast. This is Star Wars with Daddies. How you doing, Athen?
Doing quite good. How about you, Daddy?
Let's go. So the new Andor series came out, or the first 3 episodes premiered. This bedhead next to me did not watch all 3. He watched the first 2, but we're still going to cover it anyways. I'll let Athen go first, and then I'll give my opinion and kind of break it down, just what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I expect going forward.
I like Andor a lot. Just the character of him. He's a criminal and very charismatic. I know how to pronounce that. What did I do? Like that one. We're spoiling it, by the way. So if you haven't watched those episodes, just watch this to get spoiled.
We can't put a warning. This is a stream, so
sorry. Yeah, take the fat L if you're watching this. Anyway, as I was saying, he's very charismatic, and he, like the one scene in episode 2 where he is getting interrogated by one guy, 2 guys he owes money, or one guy he owes money, and his big friend, right? He talked his way out of that, no real problem. Right now, I like the style of the show. It's feeling a lot like I thought, like a Jason Bourne type thing, a 007 type thing, where he's one guy trying to spy around, go and see how much of the empire he can screw over. And I really like the style of the show. The plot is also just kind of it's interesting because I wouldn't have thought that a imperial officer like the one that we're seeing chase after Andor right now is such he's pretty much the antagonist, at least of the first 2 episodes right now. And I just wouldn't expect such a low-ranking officer, because it appears that he's not a general. He just seems to be kind of an in-the-middle guy, and he's like, you know what? Let's kill this random guy who killed 2 of our officers. It shows the actual persona of the Empire, how the officers in the Empire believe in what they're doing. They don't think that they're in the wrong. It's a lot more of a perspective, because you see this from, if you watch A New Hope or whatever, all these stormtroopers, they just seem like they're robots who just only follow orders, who don't have any brains. And all the Imperial officers you see in there seem like they're just doing one thing just because they have to. I really like the perspective this has brought so far, because it just shows you how many little moving parts there are, how the Imperial officers might think they're the good guys. Like there's just so many little things there. I just a very broad perspective of it, but I like the way that they're doing this so far. It's just fun.
I agree. First of all, going to this, kind of just explaining a couple of things. Like for first episode, I didn't really know what was going on. I know Andor killed those officers, and that he was talking to people. But I was at the end of the episode, I was like, "What the shit is happening?" Like I had no idea what was happening. It was
so wasn't
confusing.
alone.
Episode 2 started helping it come along, and then episode 3, I was like, "This all makes sense." At the end of episode 3, I'm like, "It seems like they did this on purpose." Premiered the first 3 episodes, because if it was any of those episodes released by themselves, I'd be like, "This kind of is super slow and confusing." But the fact they were all released together is I think they did it on purpose, and it's good they did that on purpose, because it works well together, all 3 of them. And now I'm excited for this series. I think it's almost like those were just for setting up this series. The rest of the series isn't going to have much to do with those first 3 episodes, it seems like. Obviously, it's not true, but that's what it seems like almost. And then those officers, I don't know if anyone's confused about that. Those aren't really the Empire. So what it is they are like the officers, the police of that sector, and they report to the Empire. But the Empire is like, those aren't the Empire. They're their own thing. They're like mercenaries. So the Empire pays them, hires them, and then they go do the bidding, keeping those people in check, and that's it. Right? So that's all that it is. They're not technically the Empire, but they work for the Empire. So it's kind of...
Yeah. It's like a private police department for the sector that the police hires out. Like,
yeah.
The government hires out specific security sectors, which actually happens.
Like the military will hire mercenaries to help do something. They're with the military, but they're not the military.
paid to do a job.
Exactly. So that's kind of what they are. But like I said, episode 1 was a little like confusing, slow. It was cool. The opening scene was awesome, but after that, I was confused. And then episode 2 was pretty cool. Good backstory, good everything. And episode 3, I was hyped. I loved it. It brought all 3 episodes together, like at a pinnacle, perfectly. And then going forward, I think it sets it up pretty well. I will say though, like the actual like Star Wars feeling, like at one point there's fucking like drums and stuff like that going. I was like, what the heck is happening? Like usually when like Star Wars is playing, there's violins and pianos and flutes in the background. But then at one point Andor is walking through like a scrapyard, and instead of that they put like an electric guitar and like some snare and some drums. I'm like, this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You remember that part?
Yeah, they run right through the scrap.
It might have been episode 3.
They had at least some of that in episode 2. Not maybe a ton, but
there was one. I think probably episode 3. But there was one scene in episode 3 where it was I was like, wow, this is really different. But overall, I think it was really cool. And like Ethan said, you can definitely tell the guy who made the James Bond thing. It's that very familiar. The guy who made James Bond also had a lot of like the shaking camera, right? Like camera was like following the action, whereas most cameras, they just action and they'll show different angles, but they don't move the camera. Jason Bourne, for all the movies, the camera followed the action, right? And so it was a little bit like if you get motion sickness, it's pretty bad for that. But they have that with the action scenes in this. You can tell the similarity there. But just like the spy atmosphere, like the undercover and spy atmosphere of it, you can also see the big similarities there as well.
One thing I do like a lot is, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm always wrong. Sorry. I do like the in episode 1, you see this random scene. Like, what the frick is this primitive tribe doing? What are they doing? And then in episode 2, I'm assuming it's Andor's backstory and where he came from. Am I wrong there? Or?
No, you see the rest of it in episode 3.
Okay, good.
Shipped it here, didn't watch it.
Yes, sir. Episode 1 and like I see that. Episode 1, you're just kind of like, what are these people? What's going on? Episode 2, why is there zero context here? This is probably not on a planet anything's talking about. Apparently, episode 3, it explains it. Episode 2, you can start recognizing which one is Andor, and then you can put it all together, which is what I did because I'm just smarter than everyone else. But yeah, I do. I do like that a lot about it, how they just threw that in there for you to have to figure out halfway through it.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, I think it's pretty cool. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a like the videos never did well. But we're just going to rate and talk about the show in one big video after the whole series is done. Or maybe like halfway through it and then one at the end too. But like we're not going to do one for each episode just because people don't really watch them. And I hate having tried to pump it out and just for no one to watch it anyways. Because you kind of have to put it out in the same day or at least in the first 24 hours with that show coming out. Otherwise it's irrelevant by the time after because there's some sort of story afterwards. So, but that's why we didn't put any breakdown or review or anything like that.
We don't know when episode 4 comes out, do we? Is it confirmed that it's next Wednesday or could it be Friday?
Me personally, I have no idea. I'm sure it is confirmed. They have to confirm it, but I have no idea if it is. I'm assuming it is because it's not very often they do something like that where they release it on the day of and then change the date. I know they did it for Kenobi, but all of the other shows they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's going to be Wednesday or Tuesday at midnight.
Yep, Wednesday, September 28th at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or BST, whatever BST is. 8 a.m. somewhere in America or in the world.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird that it's coming out at 8 a.m. so you can't watch it at 3 a.m. like I used to, but
yeah, I think it's good so far. It's different. It's way different than all the other shows.
It's a lot like Rogue One, honestly. Like it's fun how in most of the other shows you're following a group of people, a big plot going on. Even in the Solo story where you're just following Han Solo, you're also thinking of like 3 other things that are happening, and different parts. Like you're following one main thing, but there's subplots in other areas, and there is in this too, but it's much more minor. It honestly, it feels kind of like the Kenobi show in a way to me, where it's you're following the good guy and then the bad guy, and it just flips back and forth between the two of them. But I like this execution a lot, especially because they didn't add a random villain in for a 7-piece series for no reason.
Kenobi, I think, you could just tell, because Kenobi, you knew it was 6 episodes, so you know they had to hurry things up. And so when they just kind of started slow and never really picked up the pace, in fact, it kind of slowed down as time went on. And you just were like, this is going nowhere, and you could tell it was going nowhere. But Andor, since episode 1, it's already picked up pace. Like episode 2, faster pace, and episode 3, more action, more important and pertinent information. And episode 3, even more than 2, and then even way more than episode 1, right? So like you can tell it's gonna pick up pace and then start just being different. Because like Boba Fett, like the pace is different for each show, right? Like I remember Boba Fett, like episode 5 and 6, like episode 5 had like the most action. I know that was the Mandalorian, but like episode 1 and 2 in Boba Fett had like no action. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, I say the most action episode 1 and 2 had. Hey, you get to now learn how to fight, and he was seriously just getting taught that entire time. And then he comes back and sees that his whole tribe is dead with no action showing how they died.
Yeah. I'm
sorry, but you could have just shown a video of a whole bunch of Pikes just decimating a population.
Yeah, you could have, but I agree. So I think the pacing already is way better than all the other episodes. I think they're just the fact that they don't really have to work on pre-established characters is like the most helpful thing for them. They can make their own characters. Character building is a lot easier when you don't have things to already build off.
No plot protection, or a lot less.
Exactly. And when they have to, like, there's 2 characters they have to protect right now.
And they have to make sure they don't die. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's more we're going to see that we know don't die, like Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera,
yeah.
But we haven't seen them yet. So as of now, like, it's just way different. And it's a lot more, like, I think Book of Boba Fett was also just, like, really childish. It was for the family eye. And I know I said a couple weeks ago I didn't like the whole, if this is more adultish, more action, more. I think they even said shit one time, and I was like, "Wait a minute! I don't think they have that in Star Wars."
Yeah,
language.
that was really weird.
I was like, when he said it, I laughed. I was like, "Wait, that's a word in Star Wars." Anyways, but like, I don't know. It just seemed like Boba Fett was pretty childish. Kenobi wasn't. I think Kenobi was just as serious as this show is, which is I did like that in Kenobi. Like Kenobi was about I'd say half of the show was about Kenobi being depressed.
It's his mental fight, his mental battle. That's just kids are gonna watch him and be like, "I'm bored. Who's dying?"
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, but I mean, Boba Fett didn't do that very well at all. Boba Fett was like really childish. It was fine, but
that
Andor is like everything's serious, a lot more serious. Like the girl, like Andor's ex, her boyfriend sees that she's talking to him, and he thinks that they're cheating, so he snitches to those police guy that he's there, and you're like, what the hell? That's a bitch ass move right there, right? Like that's. Whereas Boba Fett, they just skip over all of them. Like, yeah, he tattletaled.
I can't remember if it was Boba Fett or Mandalorian where they just straight up had a scene of Mandalorian going through customs. Like that was the most.
That was Boba Fett.
That was Boba Fett. That right there just shows you how like that show is directed to 12 and under almost. Like not completely, but no bad words. You just see a whole bunch of action and not good character. You
can tell this wasn't by a Disney director.
Yeah.
You can tell those other 2 shows were people who have worked with Disney multiple times.
Probably the same director as Frozen, honestly.
Yeah. You think you're like, did this guy make VeggieTales or something? And this guy, you can tell he's never made anything else really childish. You can tell he's made action movies. He's made adult movies, not for Disney. And there's nothing wrong with Disney. I'm just saying the Disney formula has been the same for the last 3 shows. Kenobi, Boba Fett, and Mandalorian have all been the same, essentially.
Mm-hmm. But
if it's like Bad Batch, I get it. It's an animated show. Animated shows 90% of the time they're gonna have some childish themes to it. But like, I don't know. Boba Fett is literally an assassin. He's a bounty hunter. He was brought into Star Wars to hunt a human being down and put him in carbonite and give him to a fucking gang lord, right? That's how he was brought into Star Wars. And then you make him some like fat dude like a bantha, right? Like that's what they made him into.
That's exactly what they did.
And he
It's
hears
pretty
himself
disappointing.
getting attacked and he walks downstairs in his house robe, right? Like I don't know. It
And,
just
and you can see this. Oh shoot! Damn it! Just slipped my mind.
no.
I got nothing to say. I had a really good thing to say,
That
but
is really good, huh?
it's completely slipped my mind. If this was a video, we'd be editing that out right now. Hopefully, probably not actually, but
Yeah. Well, yeah. I so far I like it. I think it was really slow. Episode 1. There wasn't like you watched episode 1 and for like the most part, like there doesn't really seem to be anything Star Wars about this, like at all. You'd watch it like just seems like a Star Wars sci-fi movie, like a space sci-fi movie. You wouldn't even say Star Wars. Episode 2 and 3 have a little bit more Star Wars theming to it, but I think it will get a little bit better just because we've seen the trailer. They have stormtroopers, they have clone troopers, they have the Senate, and they have Mon Mothma, like characters that we know are from Star Wars. So I think the actual Star Wars theming will be a little bit better. Not that I think that's an important thing, because I think sometimes that's a problem with like the Star Wars shows. They just have to make sure they get a checkbox, right? Make sure we have lightsabers in this one. Make sure you have the Force. Make sure we have right like. So I don't need them to do that, but it is Star Wars. So I wanted to make sure like you have the right species and things like that.
do your homework. Which I mean, so far there's no problems with it. But I mean, I just hate to see some plot hole. It's not a technical plot hole, but it's like, did you really just reveal Yoda's species on accident and what they are and what they like? If they did something like that, that would piss off everyone because that's the most mysterious thing ever. As long as if they actually made a plot to it, that'd be cool. But that's so unrelatable right now. What I was gonna say earlier is I like how this is less childish, and I kind of hate how Boba Fett was because there's a stigma with animated shows that just adults don't typically watch them. Even shows directed towards adults like Rick and Morty, you're not going to show that to your kid, or else your kid's going to grow up saying "fuck" every 2 seconds. Like that's intended for teenagers and up, almost mostly teenagers, but people that are adults technically is what it's directed towards. And there's still a whole bunch of people that are like, "Oh, that show's animated. I don't want to watch that." It's like if you want to make a kid show, make it animated almost, and then you turn Boba Fett into a bantha.
Yeah, Boba Fett was pretty disappointing. We're gonna do an updated Star Wars film and media tier list. We're gonna do it at the 1 year mark of that video, but Boba Fett's gonna have to go pretty low on that list.
Yeah,
That was a pretty disappointing show. Just the more I think
really
about it, like
hyped for it, too.
Kenobi, I'm like, it's all right. It has its moments. I like that finale in Kenobi. I think is pretty awesome. That definitely saves it for me. But like Boba Fett, the more I think about it, is like besides that Mando episode, the rest of it kind of sucks.
Yeah, one thing I did like about the Kenobi show a lot was how they had the second, like they had a second plot in there. They put too much, but like there was so much hype for both Mandalorian and there was so much hype for Obi-Wan Kenobi. We had snapshots for Obi-Wan Kenobi. When the first trailer came out, we did a breakdown on that. We were like, look at this random species here who has a big brain. They're actually monks, right? That didn't play into a damn freaking point at all.
I remember that.
Just there's why you put them there. They're just part of the setting. That could have been something really cool. Like Boba Fett abusing the crap out of them, and that's why he is such a good fighter. He abused them until they made some fighting formula or some weird crap like that. There's so much they could have done, and I honestly think they had a disappointment in some of the snapshots. They show a picture of Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting in the duel, and we're like, are we going to get more content of this? And other than the opening scene of Order 66, we're like, no, we just got a flashback to it for a tenth of a second.
Yeah,
Sucks,
I mean, like they
but
hype Hayden Christensen so much for Kenobi. I think he got probably like 10 minutes screen time.
And most of it was just a duel. They had one scene, really. They could have filmed
that
it.
duel scene was
10 minutes.
awesome. Don't get me wrong, but like for how much you hype the dude in a 6-part series, that's all you give us. And don't get me wrong, maybe he was in Vader the whole time, and like that we just didn't know that. But like I don't think they really put that out there.
And it doesn't really matter who was in Vader. Like, I gotta be completely honest.
Hayden
Austin,
Christensen isn't Vader to us. Hayden Christensen is Anakin.
yeah.
When we think Hayden Christensen, we don't think, oh, Vader. Can he be Vader? Yes, absolutely. Is he Vader technically? Yes. But like when we think of Hayden Christensen, I want to see Hayden Christensen. I don't want to see a mask on him.
And if you put a mask on him, like what they did in the show Rebels, where Ahsoka had a duel with him, and then his mask went off, and it got emotional and all that. That's kind of cool. Like if he had a duel with Obi-Wan, where his mask partially came off, and you could see Vader, you could see Anakin.
Happened.
Yeah, but like they didn't make it as emotional as they could have. They didn't
I
put
thought
as
it was
much.
super emotional. I started crying when that happened.
My bad.
That's why I think the finale was so good though, because that fight, I think it could have been a little bit better. Because like I feel like the scenery was kind of lame as shit. Like they both go down to a planet full of rocks, fight, and then they just both go their separate ways. I'm like, how does that happen? But like besides that, I think the rest of that was like awesome. I thought it was really cool.
I loved the action a lot. And
Episode 6, that was awesome. Episode 5 was pretty good too, but episode 4 and 3.
Episode 2 pissed me off, where fucking Reva killed the Grand Inquisitor. I was like, did we just decanonize Rebels or make Reva a god? What happened?
Yeah, it was pretty retarded.
Oh my gosh. More and more I think about that show, the more I like the action, and that was supposed to be Obi-Wan Kenobi show, you know? Everything that didn't have to do with Obi-Wan Kenobi really wasn't that good because it got as much screen time as him and wasn't as good as him.
Yeah.
But we already covered that. I'll diss on Obi-Wan Kenobi later too. Don't worry about it.
We'll talk about it when we do that tier list.
Yeah.
But for Andor so far, solid. I like it. I don't really have any things against it so far. Like so far, I'm ready for episode 4. Do I think it's standing out super like so much right now? No, I think it's definitely different than the last couple of shows we've gotten, and I think that it's a better footing because the last couple of shows we've gotten haven't been that great. So at least it's doing that.
Starting off on the right foot is very unique for Star Wars shows right now.
Yeah.
Like even if it turns into a good series or a good season, Mandalorian's season 3 was not the most, or season 2 was not the most fun start. Like it was okay, Mandalorian, and then it actually got into some plot, and then Luke Skywalker came, and then I came. Okay,
and then there's only one other thing. The Andor season 2 that we know we were getting is confirmed. They're supposed to start filming in November, and it will release in 2024. So that's about
2 years out.
Well, less than 2 years because 2022 is almost a wrap now. We're almost into October, which means 2 months left. So we'll say about a year and a half. Pretty good. I think that's pretty great. It's also considering that Andor will bring us close to the end of the year, like end of November. So by the time Andor is done, it'll be closer to about, a year to when the next season comes out, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I hope it continues the way it is, because right now it is slow and slowly getting more interesting. And I mean, if it just keeps this pattern, it'll be more interesting.
Yeah. Yep. But that's really it for today. You got anything else, Afton?
That's it for me.
Yeah. Next week it's gonna be another late stream for Afton. He works till 7:30, but we got him early this week for once. So, but yeah. Thanks for joining. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Keep out for the new videos. So it'll be on podcast. If you're on podcast, hit that follow, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.